Hello, listeners of Heartbreaking Talks. Today, we will listen to some crazy stories, and some of them will be told from the perspective of women who cheated on their husbands. To be honest, as I was reading them, I had to go out to the balcony to catch my breath a few times. Well, let's get started. My husband asked me to write our story to see what some other opinions about it might be, what others might do. The story, like other stories about cheating, must begin at the beginning of the marriage itself. I was 15 when I met my husband, who was 18. We met because he asked his sister to invite a friend over to give him some booty. Turned out to be me. I swore up and down I would not sleep with him. But I did. For over 6 hours. We bonded during that, of course, and I did not leave his side after that except for school hours. My mom did not like it at all, but it already made the mistake of letting me go unsupervised and having bad friends, and so I was a wild child and basically uncontrollable. She ended up calling me in as a runaway many times, which my husband still has on his record, and we always joke about how he married a runaway. He proposed to me after a year, and in another year we were pregnant with our first child. Lots of sweet details, but I'll just get to the basics that are relevant. I first left the specialness of our relationship when he went to jail. It was before we married and I was desperately trying to raise money for his bail. His sister and mom were also pawning things, borrowing money and everything we could think of. I tried to sell a bag of coke for my neighbor to get some money. I'm not the best salesperson. So he said if I slept with him he'd pay me $100. I was so young and stupid and wanted my guy back so bad, so I did it. Very shameful and disgusting, but I thought it would be worth it. I didn't tell him when he got out. Later he showed me a picture he drew in jail of a black man fucking me from behind from a dream he had. Needless to say it was exactly what happened and I confessed. It was very hard for him, but he held me and told me it was okay after venting his anger. He'd rather have stayed in jail for years than for that to have happened. We went on to get married and pregnant and moved out into our own place. We struggled, but love was all we needed. I ended up cheating on him with 5 different guys over the course of the next 3 years. It wasn't that I was unhappy with him, I just had no understanding of the seriousness of what I had done. I was a very damaged girl by the time he had met me, despite being so young. Daddy issues. Many older men had taken advantage of me, and I had not even processed that till maybe 5 to 6 years after we had been married. I won't go into all the details of the affairs. We met the Lord in a very serious and deep way. He saved us, me especially. Completely outside the context of church or religion. The Holy Spirit showed me I had to tell him everything I had done against our marriage. It was very difficult. He is a strong man and very, very loving. Somehow, with the grace of God, we were able to move on and actually build a strong, healthy, proper marriage. I embraced my role as wife and mother. We had another child. God led us to move across the country to West Virginia. It's amazing the way God works when you submit to him. Our whole life was completely given to him, and he used us mightily in so many ways. We had a daughter. Chapter 2. That was all backstory. A family that God was using us to witness to had a nephew living with them. I had been given by the Holy Spirit a guard for my heart. I never ever became friends with any man. No hugging men, no texting men. I did not even shake hands with men at church. May seem extreme, but it was the best thing I have even been led to do. I wasn't interested any man ever coming close to me again other than my husband. Perhaps making up for all the specialness I had given away that should belong only to a husband in a perfect world. It helped build our trust back, restored, renewed. We both regretted not being able to be each other's firsts. It made our relation so special, private, unique. Really turned a fire on, and our sex life was healthy and loving and consistent. I don't show my hair in public either, which enhances sex also. He is the person who made me into a woman. He is my covering, my protector, my husband. I was a queen, honored and cherished wife. Something about a person seeing the best in you really helps to bring it out. I became a wonderful woman. I took care of everything and learned so much about caring for my family, treating them naturally instead of pharmaceutically. Light, love, trust, happiness, purity, wholeness, joy, and ability to help anyone who asked almost ever. I taught children's classes 3 times a week on top of homeschooling. And a weekly cleaning job which I could take the children to. I was experiencing something I never had before. Respect from men, and awe and respect when they saw me instead of that certain attention that men always had for me before. Everything happened at such a strange coincidence next. A nephew, like I said. I always took my friend wherever she asked, had her over for dinner, gave her money for electric bill, and she listened to me tell about God's power in our life. Her BF yelled once in front of us about her unfaithfulness and vulgar words you can imagine. We went to change our baby's diapers, which were the same age cause we were pregnant at the same time, and I told her so quickly it's okay, I know what that's like, I've been there before and done those things. Which was shocking and unbelievable to anyone who knew me there and then. I was very modest and godly. And I asked her if she had been abused and she had. God saved me from that. I once gave a ride to that nephew. We talked and I felt this intense pain that was so familiar to me. I wanted so badly to reach out and share my healing with him. I gave him my number to call me when he was done to get picked up. I didn't realize it or write my name on it or think about it again. I started praying for him. Never saw him or anything. I didn't hang out with my friend because I was so very busy and we lived different lifestyles. I cried for him once while praying intensely. Somehow I believe that formed a bond in the spirit. He texted me weeks later to ask whose number it was that he found in his wallet. I really was so joyful to think God had opened this line of communication. I texted with him, but he said it had to be a secret because of his reputation with my friend and her BF, and because his situation was precarious as it was with them. I told him I didn't keep secrets and my husband would know, but I wouldn't tell his people. Once I came over and said loudly in front of his uncle, remember when I gave you my number to pick you back up? Text me sometime and I'll send you such and such YouTube video about the giants and the Bible. Then at least it wouldn't be a secret. Unfortunately, the uncle was playing video games and didn't hear. Secrets are bad for me, for any child of God. Which I am in a way ashamed of saying. Because of what comes next. I became divided in my heart. I texted with this boy every day for a while. I told him why I do not become friends with Emmy and my history, and I told him my testimony. We texted good morning and good night every day. Once when I came over I got to sit with him and see him, which I never did before because he had always been in his room during my short visits. Apparently I looked at him in a special way. Which maybe I did because I was thrilled in the most innocent way to be able to connect more. However, I didn't mean anything inappropriate by it. I love all people because they are created by God. I really showed that in my life and practiced loving people on a high level. I loved him. I shouldn't have texted with a man because I had that guard over my heart for a good reason. He noticed my look to me almost immediately after I left. Said, what did I get myself into, what are you going after? Apparently I looked at him like a girlfriend would. I didn't mean to, I didn't realize it. I showed my husband the text messages when he got home and we talked about it. He told me the guy was probably wanting that and trying to make me think that. The text messages showed he was shocked that I would tell my husband I looked at another man. I texted that he knew my heart and I could never hide anything from him. He said he'd never do it and is not a homewrecker, and if I had been trying to move on him, he would have felt like telling my husband himself. Probably because he was afraid he really would see them. After showing my husband I wasn't sure if I should continue taking to him. Something wicked happened in me that night. I chose to keep taking to him despite my tugging and my heart that knew better. I kept talking to him and in fact became intrigued with him. Started to be more playful and funny instead of just loving and trying to witness as the opportunities came. I began to delete certain messages and I responded to his hinting of sexual frustration with questions. Questions that were none of my business. And when it came up that maybe my husband wouldn't like us talking about that we swore to secrecy. He said he wouldn't pursue me and he would only respond to my questions. And he would never touch Emmy, not that we would ever have a chance to between my kids and his situation. We weren't even really taking dirty to each other at that point, just talking about inappropriate things. It slowly grew into more inappropriate and I was soon deleting most of the messages, leaving only a few innocent ones to carry the pretense of friendship. I got distracted to say the least. Distracted from my duties and role of mother, teacher, and wife. My sex life with my husband was still wonderful, I didn't feel lacking. I did feel lonely at times and hadn't realized it because of my husband working and the way life can become a grind. I was stuck in a routine rut. I can see so many things now that built up to this. I was responsible for so many things and people and I didn't take time for myself. I was pregnant again also. I didn't realize the pressure I was feeling. Not justifying my actions, just reflecting on what possibly could have led to such an extreme as adultery. I got to the point of meeting him at his work and we had sex in my car. I had sex with him again about a week later when my friend asked me to help her take her boys to school because they missed the bus and there wasn't enough room in the car for all our kids, so I waited at the house and my kids played outside. We had not planned that. He pretty much stopped texting me after that day. I had gotten to this point over time and wearing away of the guard that was on my heart. I wanted to reach out and love this person with godly love, but it turned into lust and I disregarded my moral compass. My heart deceived me, it is deceitful above all things. Thus the pain I felt when he cut it off so abruptly. I was devastated, crushed, hurt. Then the guilt on top of that. I betrayed the one person who gave me dignity. I betrayed my children. I betrayed my king. I am a fallen woman. The consequences of my stumbling are still playing out, the crumbling bricks of the family and home we built still tumbling. I told my husband. I was waiting to tell him, looking for a good time and opportunity. There never is a good time for that. I looked on the internet for how to tell. Wait till you have time, do out in absolute privacy, act. He rhetorically asked me, when's the last time either of us went outside our relationship for that, sex? I broke down right there and told him, we were alone at home in the evening. Kids in bed. He knew who it was of course before the name even left my lips. We have been suffering the consequences. He has obviously suffered a lot from me breaking his heart again, and we are realizing that we never addressed these things before, we buried them under the foundation of our new marriage since meeting the Lord. Our life is falling apart, people who looked up to us don't know what to think. He may divorce me, but is very unsure. I told him I will follow him in whatever decision he makes. I stumbled and have not made this into my lifestyle. We lost his job, have taken on 6 family members into our 2-bedroom while they look for a place here in West Virginia. They moved from Co because of us, to be with us because we are so strong and godly and stable. I ruined a lot. Let a lot of people down. It hurts way more than I ever thought I could bear. I confessed to the pastor's wife at the church I was teaching at and have resigned there and at the co-op I was teaching at. Many people know this time and before we buried it all and no one knew. Now everyone knows because I can't bear the deceit to people who believed how godly I was. It's almost like the devil is laughing that I never really changed. But I know I did because I am not the same person. I can't keep in that sin. I don't know how I could do it. The only thing that ever freed me before was complete honesty, and that's a thing you cannot fake. I got scabies, poison ivy, razor burn all at the same time. Consequences. He said I should go to Co for a while to help the family that moved with us to drive in and give us a break and time to think. My punishment is so great. So heavy and I know I deserve it. He cannot be close to me right now, which I understand. But we haven't been apart since we began and I feel like a child alone and scared and really wish I had a time machine. My baby is due soon. I don't know how to keep our family together when I was the foolish woman who tore it apart with her very own hands. He isn't sure if we should continue being married, since this is the one thing the Bible excuses divorce for. It's awful for both of us. The aftermath is devastating. Lost everything, maybe, for nothing. Not only did I not witness to this boy, I showed him the opposite of God. I demonstrated the power of sin, not the power of holiness and righteousness. So now if he burns in hell, it's possibly because I was a hypocrite. I've become the worst thing. Adulterous. And our beautiful marriage will be over. The work we were doing for the Lord will be over. Everything beautiful and redeeming about our story is smashed. Our children will be broken. I didn't think through how very shattered everything would become when I selfishly pursued my own lust with another lost and hurting person. I wanted to heal him and make him feel better, but only God can do that. Not a woman. And I have no power to heal my own husband because I am the one who hurt him. I have tried so hard to be the perfect wife and love him and respond to his every need. To make up for the wrong I did before. To perfect my skills at everything in the house and to grow and love our children. To become valuable as a woman, an asset, a jewel. I have broken my crown and came tumbling down. No way to recover. He doesn't know what to do because he never wanted to experience this again and he also sees the value in our family. He loves me so much that he is more hurt by me being gone than by what I did. It's really hard for him to make a decision. So I'm just being patient, even though it's awful to wait and expect a divorce or an effort to rebuild. With the family living with us and our rented home about to be sold to someone else and his job closing and the house we bought that needs a lot of work to be livable, there is too much going on for us to be able to reasonably split. So maybe he will divorce me at tax season when he has enough money. Until then I will try to be valuable and serve him in any way I can right now. Focus again on my children and my home. Try to heal the brokenness in my heart and fix whatever led to that terrible judgment call. I will never let the guard on my heart down again. Even if he divorces me. I don't want that life ever again that I lived before. I know I am still a child of God, thus all the chastisement in my body. A righteous man stumbles 7 times, but each time gets back up. I hope somehow our story can be used by him, although I don't see how right now. So here we hang in the balance of time, the decision resting on his shoulders and so many lives waiting on it. Story 2. So it all started back in the summer of 2016, my wife was just a few months into her new job. She had left the EMS field for 8 to 5 job. To be home with our 2 boys more. A little about us: we met in 2008, got married in 2010, had 2 bright and handsome boys. Back to what happened not too long after she started her new job. About 5 months in her job site, lost a co-worker to a car accident. She took it hard because she had talked to the co-worker that morning right before the accident. She called me at work and told me. Just like any lovey husband would do, I told he'll be heading to pick her up. But she just told me no, she going to stay at work. And come home. That night she did not come home till 12 a.m., which was out of the ordinary for her. I asked her why she was late home. She told me she and her other co-workers had to help cook for the person family gathering. So a couple of days passed, the same routine: leave early, come back late. Every day I try to ask if she was okay. I even told her I'm there to comfort her and that she has someone there for her to cry on. But every day it was the same answer: she was okay. On the day of the funeral she ran into one of her other co-workers and finally introduced me to him, saying that this was her chump. The guy was as old as us. He at first did not want to shake my hand or look me at the eyes. Then when she and him hugged, she started to cry on his shoulders. I found that very strange, and that she never mentioned that she was going to all the gatherings with him till he had mentioned it when we first seen him and he finally shook my hand. Later that day I asked her what was her relationship with the guy I just met. She said he was just a friend who took it hard and she needed to cheer him up along with her other co-workers. After that I started noticing she was texting him and calling him more often at work, and after work, she would say it was just work related when I asked, and I kept on asking if there was something going on between them. Fast forward to Christmas of 2016, I was told by my wife that she had to work late and that everyone had to work late too, so I didn't question it. She didn't get home until 3 a.m. that morning. She slept till 11 a.m. By then I was up, had breakfast cooked and the boys were fed. She said it was very tough at work last night, they had to do a lot of catching up. Life went on then till New Year's Eve. She said she had to work late again and that she would be home late too. As usual I stayed home and watched the kids watch TV and cartoons with them. The next day she was not home and she didn't get home until the afternoon. She said she had to take a shower because she felt dirty from all the sweating and that the AC had stopped working in their building. So as usual, I didn't say nothing and let it be, but deep down, I knew she was with her male co-worker that had met only one. After that she changed. Our sex life died out completely. She would say she tired at night. She started to wear G-strings that I had never seen to work. And then the end of January she called one night saying she had to work late. The kids were at their grandparents' house, so the curiosity got the best of me. I went to her work to see if she wanted some dinner. No one was there, all the doors are locked, even her car was not there. I called her cell, it just went to voicemail every time I called it. So I gave up and went home. Then one day a couple of months later, a good friend of mine stopped by to see me and ask how I was doing. He told me he had heard my wife was sleeping with a coworker from her job. And that he needed to see if it was true. We talked for 2 hours. He left. I was trying to get access to my cell phone accounts, but the password was changed. I had to call to have it reset. After it was reset I logged in and found out my wife was text her coworker every minute every day, and it's sexual at times. It got to a point where she even asked if he stopped texting her because his wife was home. She even was sending him nude pictures of her to him. Now it was all adding up. Every time the company had dinner or cookouts he would avoid me every chance he got, and she would avoid looking at him or talking to him while I was there. So after 2 more days of playing like I don't know what she up to, I called her at work and told her I was in her neck of the woods and that if she would love to have lunch with me. She hesitated out first and said that she was supposed to go have lunch with her friend, but eventually said she'll have lunch with me. At lunch we talk about our work. Then I finally asked her about cheating with her man from work. She kept denying it till I told her I have seen everything she texted him. and that I was going to the head person to see what he thinks. She finally broke down and told me she was seen him. That it started that night their coworker died. And that it was just supposed to be a one-time thing, but it continued, and that her working late was just a cover for them. Because he was married too and they were doing every time they got. I was so disgusted by what I heard and was so mad and hated her so much that I left and went back home. She tried to call, but I never wanted her calls. I just texted her telling her to stay at her mom's house from the next couple of weeks. After 2.5 months I finally decided that my kids came first and that they needed their mother back home. I called her and told her that she could come home, but under one condition, that she could not talk, see, text, any form of communication with her man from work. And she said she will keep her promise, could not have anything to do with them. So my question is, did I do the right thing, or should I have just and kicked her out and never letting her come back? Story 3. Wife cheated on me with best friend from church. Me and my wife have been married for 8 years, now we have 2 sons. About 3 years ago, before my other son was even born, we used to go to a Christian church. Now at this church the pastors we loved a lot, they were always there for us like their own kids, which is why we moved so far to go to their church. At my new job I was getting stressed out a lot cause I never had a full staff and was always working. When I would come home my wife would tell me if I was going to church, and being so tired I would tell her now. Just to remind you, they had church like 4 times a week, and at this point I was only going on Sundays. We would start arguing a lot because she said that I wasn't showing her enough love and never paid attention to her and never wanted to go to church with her. Which till this day I kinda get, but at the same time I don't, only cause we would always go to the mall or always doing something. Well, I started noticing she was texting on her phone all night, and I mean all night, and when I asked who she was talking to she would tell me her best friend from church, which is fine by me cause we hanged out with them a lot, which was another young couple from church, which was the pastor's nephew. Well, we all played in the church band together and we hung out a lot. My best friend was Daniel. Well, months go by and one day my wife is crying in the bathroom and I go up to her like, what's wrong, and she says I'm pregnant, and last time she found out she made a big deal and was so happy, and this time she was crying. So I told her I was excited a bit, our new baby, hoping it was a girl, and she just kept crying, and I told her what's wrong, and she told me she had a confession to make to me, and my heart sank into my stomach. She told me she didn't know if it was mine or my best friend, which we hang out all the time. I immediately knew it wasn't mine because she always forced me to use protection, and when she told me they have been having sex each time was without a condom cause he said to her he couldn't have kids. Well, she wanted an abortion, so I drove her to get one, and ever since then we had sex without protection, and she immediately got pregnant again, and this time my second son was born. I would have left her, but at that time my grandpa who lived with me had passed away and I didn't want to be alone. So now fast forward till now, it haunts me every day, and what's worse is I feel like she is at it again. She went back to church but not the same one, and now she comes home at crazy times and she leaves me the kids one day and takes to the next. I don't know what to do. I don't love her, but I don't want my kids to have to suffer cause they really love her, but she doesn't take care of them. And of course they love me too, but they prefer their mom and I don't know what to do. Next story. After the birth of our daughter we moved to a bigger house on the west side of town. We both worked long hours and sometimes my husband picked up extra shifts, so we had some spare money for holidays. Our next door neighbors were around the same age, early 30s, with their own family. Their youngest daughter sometimes babysat for us. About a year or so after moving in they invited us to a family party. My sister had the children for the night, but then hubby ended up pulling an extra shift, so I went on my own. The night soon passed and I was more intoxicated than I expected to be. I stayed behind to help my friend clear up, and when finished her and her husband and myself sat in the lounge finishing our drinks, it was then that my friend started kissing her husband and Ben playing with his manhood. She made it very clear I was supposed to see what was happening. She then got up and said I need the ladies, but she went out of the room, said over her shoulder keep him hard for me. He then moved next to me and kissed me. His hand went straight to one then the other tit, and soon he had released them and began to fondle and suck on them. His other hand had not been idle, as he had slid it up my skirt and was stroking my mouth through my knickers. I was, I think, in shock, but I was also intrigued. Never had I even thought about cheating on my husband, never mind with our married neighbors. My friend came back in and seeing her husband pleasuring me, she began to undress until she was naked. She then managed to push her way between us and asked me if I would also like to undress. Not sure what to expect, I began to take my top off, then my bra followed by my skirt. By now both had a tit each and were squeezing and fondling them. She then started to undress her husband, who was soon naked. My friend began to give him a blowjob as he and I kissed and snogged. His hand was between my thighs, trying desperately to get to my now very juicy love hole. I opened my legs to allow easier access and was soon coming hard on the fingers inserted in me. It was only when my friend put her fingers in her mouth, licking them and then saying she is so wet and ready, did I realize it had been her playing with me. Sit on him, she said as she took my arm and guided me onto his now very hard erection. It slid in very easily, and as she played with my tits, I rode him hard until he cum in me. For the first time that night, I experienced my first woman-on-woman pleasure, and we did things I didn't even know were possible. We have met up at least once a month since then, and that was 10 years ago. If hubby knows, he keeps it to himself. I have become a wanted woman. My neighbor has introduced me to 4 of his friends who have slept we individually, but also as a group. I have spent afternoons just with him or just with my friend in their bed, enjoying every minute. I love my husband and he is a man in a million, but that night awoken something in me and I just can't stop being a cheat. And the last one story. I met a man online. We were both in unhappy marriages. We clicked immediately. He confided in me that he was bipolar. I didn't know much about this illness but didn't care because I liked him. About 2 months into our relationship, his wife found out about us and he moved out. She filed for divorce. I supported him emotionally throughout his divorce. I was still married but extremely unhappy. I always worried that he would leave me eventually because he is single now and I am still stuck in this unhappy, unfulfilling marriage. I wanted out but lost my job and couldn't support myself if I left. He always assured me he loved me and didn't care. I was torn. I love him so much, but I was married and he was single. It ate at me constantly. I wanted to be single and free. I was tired of lying and making excuses for where I was going or who I was with. He assured me things were good with us. We were together for almost a year. We had our ups and downs, which I would later find out through educating myself with the illness. A lot stemmed from his bipolar disorder and its symptoms. Despite minor arguments, we were attached at the hip. He called and texted me all day, every day when we weren't physically together. We were one and the same and enjoyed each other's company. We laughed hard and we loved hard. We were exclusive and we labeled ourselves boyfriend and girlfriend. I met some of his friends and his parents. We were deeply and intensely in love until one day, it all came crashing down. 6 weeks ago, he suddenly broke up with me. It came out of nowhere. The day before, he loved me and talked like normal. He was sweet and affectionate. The next morning, he broke it off. He said he couldn't deal with the guilt of how he acted within his marriage. That I was right, because I am married, I am limited with my time. Which, honestly, wasn't true because I was spending almost all my free time with him. I never blew him off. If he wanted to see me, I was there. No matter what. I answered all his calls or immediately returned them if I couldn't answer at the time. He also said I could never meet his young son because he would know I was partly why his parents were divorced. That statement hurt me more than anything. It made me sound like a monster. I am not a bad person. I was and still am an unhappy woman in an unhappy marriage that made a choice to go outside that marriage and met someone who made me happy. He said he had to close this chapter of his life. So, that is what everything we experienced together talked about, explored intimately, was a chapter in his life that he needed to close and move on from. He claimed he needed this separation to deal with this guilt. I will soon find out, though, that his way of dealing with this guilt of cheating on his wife would be immediately jumping into another relationship after me. In fact, less than a week after our breakup, he was posting on Facebook how happy he was, and one of his friends asked if it was because of a certain someone. That someone was not me. So, he was obviously pursuing this person while he was still with me and professing his love for me. I may be delusional, but wouldn't that mean he was cheating on me, the very thing he said he couldn't deal with doing during his marriage? Also, I know I was not the first woman he was with when he went looking outside his marriage. Why didn't he feel guilty then? Why did it take him 8 months to finally grow a conscience? If what he is telling me is true. Now, I don't know what to believe. The worst part about all of this is that immediately after he broke up with me, he blocked my number, so I couldn't even defend myself or discuss what happened. He made his decision with no regard for how I felt and then cut me out of his life as if I never existed. I have never had anyone treat me with such disdain in all my life. He went from a sweet, loving, affectionate man to cold and uncaring literally overnight. Was I finally feeling the wrath of his bipolar disorder, or am I truly just a piece of shit that can be loved one minute and thrown away the next like trash? Why didn't he tell me how he was feeling before he made this life-altering decision? If he loved me as much as he said he did, how could he give me up so easily? I told my husband everything. He doesn't want to divorce me, but I want out. I want to be on my own. I have this unrelenting urge to contact his ex-wife and apologize for my part in their divorce. I can't imagine the hurt she felt after being with this man for almost 10 years and having his child. She is a strong woman. I also would like to ask what it was like to be married to him. Did he have a pattern of doing this? I need to know for the sake of my sanity. I need to know the demise if our relationship was not all my doing. I need to know so I can forgive myself. I am in therapy now. The first few weeks were brutal. I completely shut down. For the first 2 weeks, I couldn't leave the house, let alone my bed. I lost 10 pounds, I hated the sun for shining, the world turned into a dark, cruel place I no longer wanted to be. You see, although I know now it was a fairy tale, he made me feel things I never thought possible. He made me feel young and carefree again. When I was with him, my problems dissolved and it was just us. The most mundane tasks seemed magical. He may have been using his gift for his own personal gain, but for the short time we were together, I experienced it too. He touched my heart in a way I fear no one will be able to do again. That is what I miss. The escape he gave me. It's not just the loss of the relationship I mourn, it is having to return to the life I was so desperately seeking to leave. I hate myself because I feel I caused all of this. I put my fears in his head and he took those fears, used them as an excuse to leave and ruin my life forever. He took the love he claimed he had for me and is now giving it to someone else. He changed his Facebook status to "in a relationship." It said nothing when we were together. Did he change it now because he found his true soulmate and is finally happy, or did he do it because he knew it is what I desperately wanted for us and it was one last knife in my heart? I will never know. I am dead to him. If you've made it this far, I'm making this channel just for you. Thank you so much. Support me with your subscription and see you in the next videos.